Hey, it's Julie with Book of Hours. I wanted to talk about California in general. I am a Californian. I've lived here pretty much my whole life. I was born here. But I've noticed that in San Francisco, at least over the last few years, that there have been quite a lot of changes, and not necessarily for the better. What I'm going to do is log on to some of my other social media accounts and share this. Um, let's see. How do I do that? Um, One of the things that's really concerned me about California is this new um, law that is being proposed, and it's going in front of the committee on May 9th. And it's called SB 1424. And what it is it forces people who have social media accounts in California to do some fact checking webcasting or on their podcasts or on their social media posts of their blog sites. It forces them to fact check, and I think at this point we all realize that Snopes and Wikipedia are what the establishment says are the absolute truth sites to follow. So or to reference when you're blogging or when you're going live on social media. So this is a little bit of a meta podcast because I'm podcasting on a social media site on YouTube, and I'm talking about SB 1424, which is going to be heard before the committee on May 9th. And again, what it does is it will either take down or criminalize bloggers and podcasters who don't have verifiable fact checking sources or backup for their claims. So, no room for critical thought there, no room for any kind of discussion about, what we're seeing come through the media or what we're, through mainstream media, or any kind of discussion about some of the laws that are passed. For instance, the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. Nobody in California seems to be talking about that and how that could work in tandem with SB 1424. So, what the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act does is it basically allows the government to lie to us and propagandize to us through mainstream media legally, so that, you know, if you are affected somehow by something that mainstream media says, and somehow it has an there's some sort of adverse reaction to the propaganda that they're espousing, nobody is held accountable. Nobody is culpable for that lie or that spin or that propaganda. So what we had in the past was the Smith-Mundt Act, which did make the government culpable and did make the government responsible. So they tried to be as careful as they could about making sure that they didn't manipulate the will or the minds of the citizens. Well, now the Modernization Act, passed in 2012, allows the propaganda spin and allows us to literally change the way we think, which is really dangerous. So, how does that work in conjunction with SB 1424, which basically will criminalize and target bloggers and podcasters who don't have verifiable evidence of their opinions or what they're saying? So, and some of the podcasters out there might say, oh well, this new law, it focuses on these radical channels like Infowars. Well, not really. It affects everyone. And so another thing that California is doing, which is really super creepy in my opinion, is they are basically saying that a company in California that goes by the name of Facebook is basically saying that everybody who has a Facebook account that is in Europe, that falls under the European Union, their privacy laws will no longer be their privacy will no longer be protected. So the European Union has stronger privacy laws than the United States, and especially California. Since all of these social media platforms and these, and platforms like Google, since they are based out of the Bay Area here, they have, as a corporation, they have more rights and more protections than the human beings who actually use them. So, and that's, something we discovered with the Cambridge Analytica leak, correct? When, 87 million users or not, or billion users or I don't know, it was some absurd amount. Practically every user on Facebook had their data breached. So what the law will say is that those who have social media accounts outside of the state of California or outside of the United States will no longer be under the protection of the EU laws or the European Union laws, which have really strong protective measures in place. And they will then be under the California law, which has no protective measures in place, as we witnessed with the breach of Cambridge Analytica. So, to me, California is becoming maybe a little bit too big for its britches, right? It's almost as if it's becoming a nation unto itself. I mean, we already know that the state of California has, is something like, what is it? Like, I was just going to say, the sixth wealthiest uh, uh, state on the planet. So we have more wealth in the state of California, in one state, than some countries have on the globe. And so we rank sixth on the globe as far as wealth. So there's a lot of power here, and there's a lot of companies here that have a lot of rights, and the people that use the platforms, like Facebook and Twitter and Google and YouTube, which I'm on right now, they don't have any rights. As we've witnessed time and time again, platforms are being taken down, people are being targeted. But what's even scarier, and it's something that I can attest to personally, is that once you have SB 1424 in place, and once you have established that the European Union can no longer protect the rights of Facebook users in Europe, and they are then under the jurisdiction of California, it's a free-for-all. And so right here in San Francisco, we have a judge that sits on the Superior Court that will use say blog posts or a social media commentator, and will trot that person out in front and say this person is a threat, this person needs to have an injunction put on them. So not only is their content taken down, but their actual freedom is affected somehow through like restraining orders or injunctions or things like that. So we have a judge in San Francisco that is sort of, I'm sure that he is just gleefully waiting for these things to pass so that this can actually come about for him, so that he can start using these laws to just hand out restraining orders like candy the way he does. Now, if you try to fight it, it's really challenging. It's impossible to fight him because his husband sits on the appellate court. So you could appeal his decision, but it costs you thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's not going to go anywhere because his husband sits on the appellate court. So the state of California is becoming a strange place indeed. It's like, I feel that with these two laws that are about ready to be passed, or at least they're being, they may not be passed in this round. They may not pass through in this particular round, but you can bet that they will come up in the future, and that's something we need to watch out for. So it's SB 1424. I would say look it up, and it's definitely an attack on the First Amendment. It's basically saying that the state of California is overreaching, or they have more power than the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, which is insane to me. That kind of power is very scary. So SB 1424, look it up. Talk about it amongst yourselves. It's really important. Um, and then this other, this, and so right behind it comes the European Union issue where Facebook wants to take all of their Facebook subscribers and put them under California law, instead of being protected under the EU laws, which they are right now. So, and that's happening on May 25th. So, May 9th is when they're taking SB 1424 to the committee, and then right behind that on May 25th is this whole EU thing. So I find it really, really interesting that they're so close together. So I can imagine by June 1st we might be seeing some massive, massive changes right around the corner when it comes to freedom of expression, to blog, to podcast on social media. They're already affecting us monetarily. I don't do my YouTube videos for money, but a lot of people do. And so I've witnessed a lot of people talk about how they're affected, by the fact that YouTube is censoring them and demonetizing them, or even just taking down their videos altogether. Uh, so I would say that after these two issues are brought in front of the committee, by June 1st, we're going to see some serious changes in the way that social media operates. Because if Facebook's going to do it, you can be for damn sure that YouTube and Twitter and some of the others will follow suit. So it's important to have your own website. It's important to have autonomy over your own words. It's important to slip under the radar and get out from under the clutches of these institutions that are government backed. Um, it's actually really kind of scary, and I welcome comments. Anybody who has anything else to say about SB 1424. I think what's really frustrating to me, is that there are just about everybody I know. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, just about everybody I know that lives in California is not paying attention to this, and it's like, do people here just not care? I mean, I really don't understand why, every person in the state of California and here in San Francisco, which is sort of the belly of the beast where all of this, rights grabs are taking place as far as our First Amendment rights, why everybody isn't, out in the streets screaming to protect their First Amendment rights and protect their freedom of speech. I'm just tweeting this video right now. And just the fact that this uh, doctor, Dr. Richard Pan, I believe was his name. I tweeted him and said, "Thanks a lot, Dick, for for dicking our First Amendment rights over." He was the one that introduced SB 1424, and it's literally going to be, in front of the committee in just a couple of weeks. So I'm not understanding why everybody isn't screaming about this. You can you imagine if you're blogging, say you're somebody like Katie Johnstone, who is, well, she's not in California though. Actually, yeah, this is for California bloggers. So there are a lot of California bloggers. So say you were a Katie Johnstone and you were somebody who blogged out of San Francisco or out of Los Angeles, and you were well known and you had thousands of followers, and you were highly critical of the state. Imagine if all of your work was taken down and all of your work was disappeared and your Medium page and your Twitter account was completely shut down simply because you don't believe everything that Snopes says about the state. Snopes is very much an establishment hack, fact checking site, and so that's that's It's comic book, isn't it? It's like it's not even real. It's some sort of sinister plot to keep us all, uh, keep us all tied down and speaking the same language and speaking the same rhetoric. So to me, SB 1424, which comes right out of California, is really dangerous, and it's got no other goal except to hurt those people that are questioning mainstream narrative. You know, um, we've already witnessed so much happen, as far as our rights grabs and things like that. Like I keep saying, we're living in a suspended constitution. When, Obama passed the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act in 2012, and he made it legal for the government to lie to the citizens and propagandize to the citizens. So everything that I see and everything that I witness through the media is filtered through that lens. I filter it through the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. I can't just believe everything that is coming at me from the media. You have to filter it through the fact that it is legal to lie to me. It is legal to lie to me and get away with it, you know? So the media could say something really, really dangerous, and somebody could go react based on that dangerous rhetoric, and the government and the media would get off scot free. They wouldn't be held accountable for those lies. So that's really, really dangerous rhetoric as well. So I wanted to see if any more people had anything to say. I kind of wanted to open this up and see. I've shared it on Twitter. I've shared it on my Crackbook page. um, and that's another thing. One of the founding Facebook members, uh, it's total insanity on the part of the oligarchs. It's just evil. Yeah, it is. They're not operating from a place of social democracy, are they? They're operating from a place of empowerment for themselves. They want more power over us. They want more power over our words and over our freedoms. Um, One of the Facebook founders wrote this really scathing Medium article, um, which really just, I think it jolted even more people awake. Let's see if I can find it. It basically talks about how, Facebook is a programming utility. Um, and when I find it, I'll share it in the show notes. It's entitled, um, it's from medium.com, and it's entitled ex Facebook executive says, "You don't realize it, but you are being programmed." So, and he goes on to talk about how we live in these sort of short term dopamine driven feedback loops, uh, and how those are destroying our society. So, no civil discourse and no cooperation, total misinformation and mistruth. It's not an American problem. This is a global problem. So, imagine that's one of the reasons why Facebook wants to have more control over the European Facebook subscribers. They want to have just control over everybody's words. They want to make sure that the rhetoric is you know puppy dogs and and silliness and nothing really real, so that anything that happens in this country can't be contributed back to them. So it's really, this article was such an eye opener. So it goes also, he goes on to say, bad actors can now manipulate large swaths of people to do anything you want. It's a bad, bad state of affairs, and we compound the problem. We curate our lives around this perceived sense of perfection because we get rewarded in these short term signals. So every time you do a heart or a like on Facebook, you get a little shot of dopamine in your head. It's literally like doing a shot of some kind of drug that makes you happy. And that's what it was programmed to do. So it's amazing how we've all just kind of gone there to that platform. I mean, and I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I was I love certain podcasters on Facebook and I go to them regularly. So, uh this seems really strange to me, right? This seems like you're taking the human element out of humanity, right? You're turning it into a society that can be controlled and manipulated, and they don't have critical thought, and they don't have a mind of their own. And so that took place right here in California. I mean, I call this podcast California for a reason because, you know, this is, like I said, this is the belly of the beast. This is where the magic happens. You know, this is where the apps are made. This is where the Facebook technology is curated and um, sharper. You know, it gets better every time they do an update. You know, it happens here. So it's, to me, it's somehow it's lost its way, and it's it's sort of like the story of Frankenstein, and even in this article, he does use Frankenstein as an example. You know, it's become bigger than he can control or that they can control, and I think, you know, so many people I know, when Mark Zuckerberg was being questioned, so many people I know here in California were cheering for him, or they felt sorry for him, and they were speaking this very strange language. It's like, wait a minute, you have Stockholm syndrome because this person is working in tandem with, you know, agencies like DARPA, which are really dangerous, which are making vast improvements in mind control, and you're cheering this person on because he has affiliations. You know, he has affiliations with DARPA. He's working on programs that will influence people, and if you're young, or if you're on the spectrum already, you could be easily influenced. And I'm convinced that some of the stories that we do here that are not fabricated events, but they're actually real, I'm convinced that those people are reacting and behaving based on, you know, on this echo chamber of their own belief system, no matter how wrong that belief system is, or, you know, there's so much lack of critical thought that they go out into the world, and then they commit these atrocious acts based on that feedback loop, based on that echo chamber, and that takes place right here in California. So, you know, it's you know, and so when you have laws like SB 1424, and then you also have this, you know, Facebook wanting to have complete autonomy over privacy, which apparently what they're basically saying is that we, Facebook, are bigger than the European Union, that our privacy laws are going to swallow up yours. And, you know, Facebook doesn't have any privacy laws. You know, your presence on Facebook, your digital persona, your thumbprint, your image, who you are, your digital presence is they make money off of that. Um, and so what Facebook is now suddenly so arrogant, $40 billion in their pocket. They're basically saying we're bigger than the European Union. We're bigger than the privacy laws that the European Union has passed for our Facebook subscribers. And so basically what it sounds like, it's, you know, we just want to take over the, you know, in this technology part of privacy laws, they want to take over the European Union. I mean, that's insane, right? To have a company have that much power and autonomy, one corporation. Corporations are people. They have more rights than people do. And I'm sure that there will be some kind of pushback from the subscribers, the European subscribers. JP and I were talking earlier. You know, we know that the European Union at one point sued Microsoft and Google for their breaches or their overreaching arms of power, and their you know, hubris. So we're thinking, okay, maybe the European Union will also sue Facebook, but for what? Will it even matter? It's $40+ billion is what they're worth. So at some point, whether you sue somebody or not, it kind of doesn't matter. At some point, it's like, yeah, go ahead and sue me. You know, I'll just get more money. Money isn't the issue. They want power. They want power. They don't want money. So, what do you do? What do you do when you are faced with these massive, massive rights grabs and this massive breach of power and this hubris? Well, maybe you just like walk away. So let's see. I discontinued my feedback and dismantling of. Okay, I didn't quite catch it. It went away. So a lot of people are getting off of Facebook. A lot of people are just jumping off like rats off a ship. I mean, they're going to other platforms, and I know that we're my social media presence on my personal account is pretty fluffy. It's like, pictures of my honeymoon from a couple of weeks ago in Sweden, pictures of, food, uh, nothing really, maybe some snarky comments here and there just to get a laugh, but nothing really, really serious. Now, I do have a Book of Hours Facebook page that we post to, and that's where we put a lot of our political stuff. Right, Standing Rock was dismantled. So that's a good example of a rights grab too. Is what they did to the water protectors at Standing Rock, and you know, and to me, and much like the Occupy movement, and much like what we see in Paris, which came out of Paris, France, which is called Nuit debout, which means up all night. We're talking about citizenry that operates outside of the constraints of the state. So, what happened with Standing Rock was very interesting and very powerful, and because it also happened with Occupy and it also happened with Nuit debout. So, um, people got together and they started to live uh, within their own democracy. They started to live within their own society. They developed trade. So I'll trade you for this. I'll trade some water for some, for some toothpaste or whatever. And suddenly, all of these camps were being built up throughout Standing Rock, throughout the whole area that they were protecting from the pipeline. So, and I remember seeing Chris Hedges go there. He's a journalist. He used to write for the New York Times, and now he has his own show on RT called On Contact. And I remember seeing just this vast array of tents and people, and a whole civilization was behind him. And I had no idea that tens of thousands of people had come to that part of the country to live. Like they built their homes there, they were raising their children there, and it was like for a whole year, right? It was, at least it went through a winter and a summer season, right? I seem to think that it was like a whole year. And that scared the state. That frustrated the state so much because the people were coming together and living amongst each other, and they were able to function. They were able to eat and clean their clothes and clean their bodies and work with each other to yeah. And the government became terrified of that. It's the same thing with the Occupy movement. When they were starting to really, more and more people were getting involved in the Occupy movement. Obama then put a stop to that when he unleashed 7,000 mercenaries to break up the various Occupy movements throughout the country. And it never really recovered. Occupy never really recovered from that kind of attack. But Nuit debout is still going strong because sometimes in Europe they have a better understanding because they're simply older than we are. Europe is a lot older than the United States, so they understand the power of the people. So they continue to work together. They recently shut down the Eiffel Tower. All the people that work at one of the most heavily touristed uh, places in the world, the people that work there just walked off the job. I can't imagine what would happen if the cable car workers here in San Francisco just decided to walk off the job in solidarity with, say, the hotel workers that are trying to fight for a fair wage. Can you imagine that? What kind of power, what kind of message that would send? So yes, the government does get very afraid of people who stand up for themselves and work together to create a functioning society. Um, yeah, that's the power of the people. That's right. Um, and I think that the goal of the media, the goal, and especially with the passage of the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, is to lie to us and tell us how divided we are by our skin color, by our economic positions, and that's a complete fabrication. That's a lie. And I think that when we fall for that lie, that's when it becomes dangerous. So, um, I did entitle this California for a reason because I wanted to say something about the state of California. I wanted to say something about the hubris that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook has, that they think that they can just go over to the European Union and 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 just take away the privacy laws that are in place in the EU. I'm hoping that they pull it back a bit. I'm hoping that, you know, that they reflect on what kind of message this is sending. This is insane. And other laws. I mean, just some of the stuff that was introduced and some of the stuff that was put forth as possible legislation in regards to the prison industry. It was chilling. Um, yeah, so I'm glad that you have been able to exit Facebook and Twitter. I'm glad that you're off too. I mean, that's right now. I mean, if we listen to what Edward Snowden said, it's nothing more than just, you know, uh, what is it? He said it was nothing more than programming for the CIA and for the government, and so this article that this Facebook exec wrote on Medium is very telling about what their end goal is. It's very telling about the dangerous spin. People are not paying attention to the in-your-face realities of takeover. No, they're not. So yeah, so I think from what I understand, that last comment was is if you felt like they were being mean, then you responded in kind. You were also mean. You felt that they were being mean, so that's a natural. I guess you're only human, right? So if someone's mean to you, then you'll be mean back. Um, I get it. I that's very natural. Twitter is for acting tough. Uh, and I am going to ignore that last comment. That was disgusting. So obviously we have a troll, but trolls will be ignored. Um, so, um, as far as the state of California, I think that, it's a lot of people say that they want California to separate from the federal government and become their own sort of nation state unto themselves, so that and I can see how a lot of liberals would think that would be a great thing, especially given the administration that we have right now, um, and in government. This is a test on how I can stay focused despite the troll comments. Um, so yeah, so what I did is somebody actually asked a legitimate question about Sane Progressive, or Debbie Lusignan. So there were some of her videos that were actually coming down, like the moment she would end her message, they would just disappear. So I don't know if she was taking them down, or I don't know if the algorithms were taking them down. So what we did is we just thank you, Mildred. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Um, I don't have many followers. We don't have many followers. So I'm just trying to be more engaged on this channel. Um, so what I was doing for Debbie was I was basically capturing some of the videos that I felt were really, really important and putting them on our YouTube page, of course, giving her the credit. I put her name up there and everything, so that people could still have an opportunity to see, what she has to say, which is very important. And I think that, my takeaway regarding staying progressive and regarding just watching her videos is that we all need to find a voice. We all need to send a message out there. We all need to have real conversations in real time about what's happening. I think that SP 1424, which is very dangerous for bloggers and social media commentators in California, I think that that should be out in the front of everybody's conversation who lives in California, because it affects all of us who live in California. And I think, and then in tandem to that, should be the conversation about Facebook wanting to, basically swallow up the privacy rights and take over the European Union in this particular niche. I think that's incredibly arrogant, and the hubris there is just astounding to me. Um, yeah, she did do a video that said, "Okay, I'm taking a break, goodbye." But I have a feeling what's happening is she's going to do some traveling, because she did happen to mention it in another post. She's going to do some traveling, and so what we're hoping for is for her to get out there and start, you know, having some citizen commentary like out in the field, which would be really cool. So I know that she's going to be traveling sort of in her area, which is like the northeast of the country. So that's really cool. So let's hope that we hear more from her. Yeah, so I hope she takes it grassroots. I think that she is grassroots. I mean, we're talking about a woman who, uh, just like this, she's in the privacy of her own home, just reflecting on some of the legislation that has been passed, and she also gives uh, sort of a critical analysis of what mainstream media says. And she should write a book. Somebody just mentioned that she might be writing a book, or that they had heard that there was a book in the works. Well, she should totally write a book. I mean, she's the one that single-handedly opened wide the 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 destruction of our critical infrastructure of our election system. Correct? I mean, she is the reason that I stepped away from the electoral process and don't consider it a viable way to, contribute any change to the planet or to the country. I don't think our voting system is legit, and she was the one that explained all of that to me. She laid it out very clearly with her breakdown. And then of course, I witnessed in real time some crazy, crazy stuff happening in the 2016 election, which could not be explained. So she did that for us, didn't she? That she made us realize that, the politicians will speak the language of empathy to try to get you to contribute to their campaign, or pull you in to a rhetoric and then once you're there, there's nothing there. It's empty. There's nothing there to really fall back on. There's no foundation there. So it's my belief that a lot of these political uh, um, campaign people are actually there to make money, and then when they don't win, or they don't take the seat, they will then acquiesce to the mainstream or the establishment person that they're running against, and all of the donations from the citizens will then go to the mainstream person or the establishment candidate. So I believe that I think it's kind of like, it's like the mob, It's very much, it's very corrupt, and it's, some of the people running for office are legit. They don't realize that they're part of kind of a scam. Um, but ultimately, ignorance is no excuse, right? I think that that's also something that we've learned over the last couple of years. You know, as citizens, we need to start taking responsibility. I still hear a lot of language in, you know, and in California, I hear it a lot too, which is like, well, we didn't know that this law passed, or that this meant this, or that this happened. And it's like, you know, at some point, you have to stop using ignorance as an excuse for being complicit in the continued suspension of our Constitution, and the continued suspension of our civil rights and our constitutional rights. At some point, you have to say, yeah, I got to be responsible for this. I got to get out in front of this, and I got to, you know, um, look at everything with a critical eye, and anything that is said to me, I've got to just break it apart and find out what other people are saying about it, you know. And I've met a lot of podcasters and watched a lot of different people give a lot of different takes on things, and it's really opened my eyes. It's really, I feel uh, smarter. I feel more out in front of things. And I no longer can use the excuse of, well, it's not my fault. It's not my fault that, you know, that somebody like Donald Trump was installed, who, you know, I don't agree with his policy. Well, it kind of is my fault, you know. At some point, you have to take responsibility for the way that this country is going. You know, I think that the citizens in other countries can be a good example of that. You know, they, like I said, there's this thing. It's called Nuit Debout. It's actually been going on for 2 years, and they have a lot of power behind them. Uh, so for non-commercial travelers, exempt license plates, I'm not familiar with that, with what that's about. So I'll have to look into it. But thank you for commenting. Um, that's really interesting. You know, I mentioned in I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. You know, San Francisco is the belly of the beast. It's kind of like where everybody wants to live. They think they can make a lot of money here and live in a really beautiful Victorian with a gorgeous view of the bay or the ocean, and it's not really like that. San Francisco is a lot like living in a caste society, where you've got lots of people that are really, really struggling, and then you have a few people that have a lot of money, and that's called a caste society, CASTE, and it's very corrupt here. San Francisco Mayor Ed Lee died under mysterious circumstances. Um, it was very odd, and so there are a string of would-be mayors in place that are campaigning to take his place. And of course, we believe that the most corrupt one and the most bought out establishment one, who's basically another Hillary in the making, Hillary Clinton in the making, we believe she's going to be installed and put in that position. I don't even think that we have a functioning electoral system on a very basic level, even in our cities and in our counties. I don't think we have that. I definitely don't think we have a functioning system on the electoral level. But so we're witnessing, you know, that kind of thing happen, and it's really eye opening for us. And it's really troubling. Confront the lies. .com. Oh, .com is a great site. Okay, so lies.com. I don't know. I'll have to. If you could put it in again, that would be great. You can also reach out to us on our. I have a Twitter account. You know, it's Book of Hours, Julie. Um, but you know, and you can also email us at
Julie at book-of-hours.com.
Julie at book-of-hours.com. But sometimes, you know, just commenting on here is great. So San Francisco is a place, you know, like I said, where everybody wants to live, but there isn't a lot of there. There's not a lot of opportunity for people. We're witnessing the industry do some changes, even in the way that they interview. It's one word. Okay, I was just reading your comment. Um, I think I understood what you meant. So, um, and California, I think is got too much power, and that kind of scares me because what happens is the corporations that are here. So you've got Hollywood in Southern California, and then you've got Silicon Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area, and these are two powerful money making entities
Propaganda machines.
and propaganda machines that they just have way too much power, and there isn't enough room for the voice of the people. Um, so it's very challenging to live here, I think, and witness all that. And when I see something like SB 1424 come down, I just, you know, it's going in front of the committee in just a couple of weeks, and if it passes, then I know that the Facebook, privacy laws overtaking EU laws will also pass, and that's going to change everything. And the thing about an erosion of our constitution and the thing about a suspended democracy and a suspended constitution is that it's a slow boil, it's a slow process. And I think that what I'm witnessing here is in this particular state is legislation in place that is presented by the corporations that have more rights than the people and then proposed by the politicians and supported by the politicians, of course, who are in the pocket of the companies or the companies are in their pocket, is is what's going to happen on a federal level. So it's really scary. In California, it's really common to have something that you write in a blog, you will be attacked and you'll have an injunction put on you in the civil courts. Okay, so can you imagine if everybody in the country experienced that? If every single person across, this entire nation, every time they wrote something or put something on Medium or blogged about something that was offensive to another person, that they could go to court and use the civil system and use the court system to put either a restraining order on that person, an actual restraining order, or an injunction on that person. So it's more than just having your accounts taken away from you. It's more than just having your YouTube pages demonetized or your YouTube channels demonetized or your Facebook pages taken down temporarily. This is an actual infringement on your actual freedom where it will affect your income and your ability to live, and it's legal in San Francisco. This is what's happening here in California. So I think what we're going to see with the passage of SB 1424 is a further implementation of that suspension of our democracy throughout the world. And so that's why I'm on here today to try to warn people and say, you've got a couple of weeks before this thing, gets in front of the committee. And I've only got a couple of hundred subscribers. So it's, I feel like I'm the only one in California who actually understands how impactful and dangerous this legislation is. So, um, so I'm hoping that other people will take it upon themselves to do some more research about it, and we can play a game of telephone and just get the message out there somehow. But I would hate to see the rest of the country, experience what we already experience here in California, which is an attack on our freedom of speech. I think because it's been 48 minutes that I'm going to go ahead and end this now. Thank you so much for listening. I know it's a long one. I know I had a lot to say, but and just keep looking out for Debbie too. She's out there, and I'm sure she's got some gems up her sleeve. So you and I will both be waiting to hear back from her. And if I find anything, I will be certain to save it. You're welcome. Thank you for joining. I'll save it and put it on the page as well. So you guys have a great afternoon. And I'm Julie, and my page is called Book of Hours. And I'm also with my husband JP. Sometimes he does podcasts with me. So I appreciate you guys checking in. And please, I'm going to leave it with SB 1424. Please look it up. That's SB, S like Sam, B like boy, 1424. It's a very draconian policy, basically to take away California First Amendment rights. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.